welcome to part 4 of our recent voyage aboard the AmaVenita. In part 4, we're going to explore the ship and do a stateroom tour, a food and drink guide, an entertainment guide, pros and cons of this particular voyage, and a few final thoughts. Well, let's get started with what to expect from AmaWaterways. Now, this was not our first river voyage. We had done 2 previous on Viking. We had come away from the first one, a grand European cruise, feeling pretty good about it. On the second voyage, Swiss Alps to Paris, France, we came away with mixed feelings. We both felt that although the pre-cruise extension arranged through Viking was wonderful, but the cruise itself was rather meh. So did we expect anything different from Ama? Well, not really, because at least on paper, it's pretty much the same, with only minor exceptions. But those exceptions, in the way of food, drink, and excursions, made quite a difference to us. Now, that is not to say that changes in Viking's way of doing things since 2022, when we last sailed on Viking, may have changed things for the better. I just don't know. But please, if you have recently sailed on Viking river cruises, let me know how it worked out for you. And now for the disclaimer. Just keep in mind that everything I'm about to say is an opinion, and it's just my opinion. Your experiences aboard either Viking or AmaWaterways may have given you something entirely different. Please let us know if that is the case. Your comments and suggestions are always welcome. Well, let's get started with the AmaVenita ship tour and stateroom tour. The AmaVenita itself was built in 2015. She is 443 feet in length, with a beam or width of 38 feet. There are 81 staterooms housing up to 162 passengers. There is a normal crew complement of 51 that gives us a passenger-to-crew ratio of about 3.15 to 1. The AmaVenita is flagged and registered in Switzerland. There are 4 passenger decks. And let's start our quick tour with the sun deck. The sun deck is home to plenty of loungers and seating areas both in front of the wheelhouse and behind. I have no idea what is under that tarp you see in front, because whatever it was never utilized while we were on board. The other area that was rather underutilized is a pool. And interestingly, this tiny pool has a swim-up bar. Not, of course, that it is big enough that you could actually swim up to anything in it. There's one of those cool, oversized, giant chess sets on board, right next to the walking track. And here, at the aft of the sun deck, is the one and only smoking area. And as is typical for riverboats, you will get to know the sun deck as you will occasionally have to walk across other ships to make it ashore. One deck below the sun deck is the violin deck. In addition to having the highest level of staterooms, the violin deck is home to reception, and a few steps up to the cruise manager and the hotel manager. Reception is also home to the most direct access outside in most docking scenarios, a library with a handful of books and a few board games, the small boutique area with mostly AmaWaterways labeled swag, a few essentials, and of course jewelry. Just outside the boutiques are the coffee and tea connections, and these machines are available 24/7. And that leads into the spacious Lark Lounge used for safety briefings and other events. The Lark Lounge has a full bar, comfortable seating areas, snacks throughout the day, and serves light meals at breakfast and lunch. At the aft end of the violin deck, we find some more interesting spaces, such as the chef's table. The chef's table is a fine dining experience that can be had for the asking. at no additional upcharge. And right next to the chef's table is a fitness center, and across the hall from that, a hair salon and one table massage room. Extra charges apply. One more deck down, we have the cello deck. The cello deck, besides being home to 33 of the staterooms, is also home to Journey's Restaurant, the main dining venue aboard the AmaVenita. Journey's is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The lowest deck with limited passenger access is the piano deck. This is the deck where there are a few staterooms that reside under the waterline. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the accommodations on board the AmaVenita. There are 3 passenger decks, violin, cello, and piano, that contain all 81 staterooms. The violin deck is considered the premier deck and is the only deck to feature suites, coming in at 300 square feet. Violin deck also features stateroom categories AA and BA, a unique approach to a river cruise stateroom having both a French balcony with a sliding door and a walkout balcony. Lastly, there is the considerably smaller option of the French balcony only, at 170 square feet. On the next deck down, the cello deck, there are only 3 options available, AB and BB, both featuring the unique design of both a French balcony and a walkout balcony. And the cello deck finishes up with 8 of the 170 square foot Category C French balcony staterooms. And the lowest passenger deck, the piano deck, finishes up with 16 of the smallest staterooms at 160 square feet, categories D and E. These staterooms are all below the waterline and have only a window looking out onto the river. And now it's time for a quick tour of our stateroom. We stayed on the cello deck in stateroom 225. The stateroom was a snug 210 square feet and was a Category BB stateroom. Inside, we found a small but comfortable space with a queen-size bed flanked by 2 small nightstands on either side. There are no AC outlets conveniently located on either side of the bed, but there are some USB-A/C outlets available. It is my understanding if you need AC power, just talk to your room steward and they can bring you an extension cord that can be connected to an outlet hidden away behind or under the bed. The bed is high enough that suitcases can be stored underneath, although the tight quarters on both sides will make getting a full-size suitcase under there an interesting chore. There is a counter area providing enough desk space to get by for a short time. There is a mini fridge underneath and some storage. An espresso machine is supplied and a charging stand for your Quiet Box tour radios. There are both 110 and 220 volt AC plugs here, but not really enough of the 110 variety if you are from the US. The solution for me has been to make sure that all of my power supplies will operate on either 110 or up to 240, and bring enough adapters to make sure that I can plug in my 110 devices to the 220 plugs. Again, make sure that your devices or the wall warts/power supplies will support and automatically switch voltages, because some older devices will not, and fireworks will ensue. The television is of a good size, and the list of available movies and shows looks pretty good, but we used it primarily for checking out the daily menus and schedules. Moving over to the closet space, there are some shelves with a too small safe that I could barely get my iPad Pro into. Larger laptops need not apply. The hanging space and hangers were sufficient for our 7-day voyage and would probably be fine for even longer journeys. The bathroom is hiding behind that opaque window on the left that interestingly can be turned transparent at the flip of a switch, presumably to make the bathroom feel larger. And while the bathroom is small, it is big enough and does have a rather spacious shower with multiple spray heads. There is only 2 shelves for storage of your toiletry items. Perhaps the biggest strength of this stateroom are the twin balconies. On the right, you see the window, which is actually a sliding door for a French-style balcony, while on the left is another sliding door for the walkout balcony. It is small, but of sufficient size to house 2 people comfortably while the scenery slides by. Next up on the ship tour, let's talk a little bit about the food and drink. There are in general 2 breakfast venues, the Lark Lounge for a early or light breakfast, and Journey's Restaurant for a full sit-down breakfast. There are 3 choices for lunch usually, and that would be the Lark Lounge area for what they call a bistro lunch, Journey's Restaurant for a full service sort of lunch, and for 6 of the 7 days that we were on board, they served a Italian buffet lunch in the chef's table. And there are 2 dinner choices, the Journey's Restaurant and the by reservation only chef's table. For breakfast in Journey's Restaurant, they served up the normal breakfast buffet sort of things. Plus, they might have a special sort of dish in the morning, or you could order up something special from the egg station. The breakfast they served up in the Lark Lounge was usually very light, having a handful of hot items, usually scrambled eggs and bacon, and a few breads and pastries designed to kick your morning off. Overall, breakfast was, well, breakfast. It was filling and always tasty, but nonetheless, it was breakfast. Lunch, however, in Journey's Restaurant was quite good. Every day they would have a different soup or carving station. Today was their version of pho, and an extensive and quite nice salad bar. A nice variety of cold dishes, and a variety of vegetables. The carving station would range from simple ham to a very nice and delicious brisket one day. There were the items you could order from the menu, like fish and chips, and a hamburger that was very well done. Even a very nicely done pizza, or this specially Swiss sandwich, along with a variety of desserts, including fresh fruits. Now, as mentioned, we found out really on our last day that they would set up and have an Italian lunch in the chef's table. I have no pictures because we didn't go there for the Italian lunch. If you've been there and done that, please let me know in the comments below. Here's a sample of the Lark Bistro lunch. Pause and peruse at your leisure, but essentially they would have specials of the day in the always available menu. But let's talk dinner. Dinner was always in Journey's Restaurant and the by reservation chef's table. Overall, we found the food varied and very well prepared. The wine served with dinner seemed to be pretty good. Most of them from France, Italy, and Germany. Some of them labeled bottled exclusively for AmaWaterways. And although they served a house wine for the evening, alternatives were available and still complimentary during lunch and dinner. The menus were quite varied and ranged from the chef's special night, featuring Chef Kellerhall's signature dishes, and a supposed wine pairing. On the chef's special menu, we enjoyed several things like this seared tuna, a delicious carrot and ginger cream soup, very tasty teriyaki glazed beef bowl, and lobster medallions on an open-faced ravioli, or to my eyes, a strip of flat pasta. The other main dish we enjoyed this evening was this perfectly done beef fillet. And to finish off the meal, we stopped with this delicious chocolate Grand Cru. But how did they do on just, well, any other night? Actually, quite nice. Here are some samples. Overall, I'd rate the food in Journey's restaurant quite highly, with mostly hits and very few misses. The second dining venue aboard the AmaVenita was the Chef's Table, a by-reservation only restaurant featuring what they call a tasting menu. We tried out the Chef's Table on the very first night of our voyage and found it, with only one exception, to be very good, in some cases approaching spectacular. The Chef's Table is just that. It accommodates about 28 guests, has a small kitchen where everything is prepared by a single chef, and a dedicated serving team of 2. And what came out of that tiny kitchen was this. We started with an heirloom tomato essence and burrata cloud, kind of an interesting take on a caprese salad, a lovely scallop and pear dish, an unusual combination that tasted wonderful, a lovely ginger and carrot soup, a king prawn floating in a coconut and lemongrass essence, bursting with flavor and almost melting in your mouth, a green apple sorbet as a palate cleanser mid-meal, and the only miss of the evening, the somewhat overcooked and a bit tough Angus beef strip loin. And the official dessert for the evening was a dark chocolate and passion fruit mousse. And it happened to be someone's anniversary that evening, and they celebrated with us at the Chef's Table, so we got a bonus piece of cake. And that brings us to the drink portion of this guide. And while it's not quite an open bar, if you are a drinker, something is available for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For breakfast, you can order up some sparkling wine, specialty coffees, tea, and fresh juices, all included. For lunch and dinner, wine, beer, and soft drinks are all included. There's also a sip and sail cocktail hour every day. And if you want anything beyond that, it's a sort of pay-as-you-go thing. There are no drink packages on AmaWaterways. Teas and specialty coffees are available 24/7, along with ice water and infused water in the Lark Lounge. Now let's take a moment to talk about Sip and Sail Cocktail Hour. Sip and Sail Cocktail Hour actually sets AmaWaterways somewhat apart from the other river cruise lines that offer wine and beer with lunch and dinner only. If you check the Daily Cruiser newsletter every morning, you would find the cocktail and a mocktail of the day that would be served during the Sip and Sail Cocktail Hour. Here's a couple of examples. The first was the Lemon Drop, and the second is the Manhattan. Cocktails were normally served with some sort of snacks like these blisteringly hot, face-melting wasabi peanuts. There was one problem with the cocktail of the day. Usually they were made in very large batches, so by the time we got them, they were pretty watered down. So we quickly found out that ordering from the menu of included drinks and something other than the drink of the day usually gave you something more palatable. And if you wanted something outside of happy hour or something with a premium liquor, it was available for an extra charge. But let's discuss some of those inclusions and the food and drink and so on to determine whether or not these are a pro or a con. One interesting aspect of AmaWaterways cruises is that there is a focus on fitness, and they even include dedicated personnel to see to that fitness, even to the point where they offer a fitness room and excursions that feature bicycle trips or hiking, and daily fitness classes and interactions while on board and throughout the day. Overall, the inclusion of this type of program is a welcome improvement over what is offered by most of the other lines. One definite pro is that the Wi-Fi is complimentary, but at the same time it is balanced by a minus, and that is it's not very fast. These are typical speeds that I was getting when connected to the shipboard internet. Fast enough to stream from Netflix or YouTube in standard or high definition, but a long way from being able to stream 4K video. But all in all, pretty good for shipboard internet. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the food. AmaWaterways touts award-winning cuisine. They talk up their farm-to-table approach and their innovative and award-winning menus in Chef's Table and the main dining room. So is it all that, and is it a pro or con? Well, I'd have to say it's definitely a pro, and though our river cruising experience has been rather limited to only 2 previous voyages, the food was much better on Ama than our previous experiences. What about the wine? Well, Ama claims that they hand-select the wines, the beers, the soft drinks, and they offer that sip-and-sail cocktail hour. While not an onophile, I do drink wine occasionally, and I found for the most part that their choices were solid, and at least for my unrefined palate, drinkable. I didn't try any beer, and I didn't try any soft drinks, so I just have to assume that they fall under the same general quality umbrella as the wines. Overall, a real pro. And add all that to the idea that there is 24-hour coffee and tea service available at the end of just a short walk, and you have a pretty good package and experience. What about shore excursions, you might ask? Well, Ama calls them shore experiences, and for the most part, they are all included. The only exceptions are special tours like special concerts, special private events, and so on. Those sort of events might levy an upcharge. Usually there are 3 to 6 included excursions in every port, and of those inclusions, some may be active, such as a bike ride or a hike. Others may be gentle, as in a walk around the city with no stairs to negotiate, and some may be regular, as in with steps and or rough pathways. We had none of the special excursions, but were very satisfied with all of the excursions offered, finding them well planned out and well implemented, and found them overall a big pro. There were some additional costs for us because we had something else going on after the river cruise. Air and transfers were on us. If desired, air and transfers can certainly be arranged through AmaWaterways. For our 7-day voyage, there were port and docking fees of $500. Interestingly, we received an onboard credit of $500, which essentially canceled that expense. Next up are gratuities. Like many cruise lines, Ama adds gratuities at the end of your voyage, and in this case, those gratuities were about $358 over the 7 days for both of us. Gratuities were easily handled via credit card by simply walking up to reception and telling them what you wanted to do. Well, here are some final thoughts on the matter. We have been river cruising before, so while river cruising was not entirely new to us, AmaWaterways was, and we found AmaWaterways actually better in several key areas. First of all, this itinerary just seemed more interesting. That could be attributed, I suppose, to the idea that it was a themed cruise, i.e. Tulip Time, but it was very well thought out by Ama. Contributing to that, to a large extent, were the shore excursions, or as Ama puts it, the shore experiences. They were all good, all interesting, and, from our standpoint, included. Also very welcome were the 3 levels of activity usually available on your shore experiences. And while the bicycle tours were enticing, I haven't been on a bicycle in probably 40 years, so we kind of left that one alone. The other big plus, as far as we were concerned, was the food. The food was vastly superior to past river cruises that we had taken. We were constantly amazed at the quality and variety of the food that came out of the relatively small kitchen of the river cruise ship. The inclusion of the sip and sail cocktail hour was a nice touch, with the only downside being that the experience was, quite literally, diluted by preparing the drinks too far ahead of time. Another important aspect of any cruise is the entertainment. And while less is expected on a river cruise, the entertainment aboard our short 7-day cruise was surprisingly good. In large part, I think we have to thank for that our onboard entertainer, Alex, a superb pianist, DJ, and all-around AV helper. He performed a wide variety of both classical music and a good mix of popular and dance music. So, kudos to Alex. The other strong part of the entertainment program were the guest entertainers brought in on this short 7-day cruise. And lastly, there was our cruise manager, Monica V., the hostess with the mostest that kept us entertained throughout the trip. The AmaVenita itself was impeccably maintained and seemed to be spotlessly clean throughout. And finally, a mention to the crew. The crew, mostly Eastern European, with a few Filipinos and other nationalities mixed in, were engaging and friendly and attentive. In short, we found AmaWaterways, their ways of doing things, and this particular cruise, in general, was very, very good. Will we sail aboard Ama again? Yes, I think so. Well, that's it for our AmaVenita ship tour. Thank you so very much for watching. And please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be kept up to date with new videos as they arrive. Check out my website at tomsmultiinterest.com and stay tuned for more. Our next adventure will be Nice to Nice to Nice aboard the elegant Silversea Silver Shadow. And we'll probably start that series with the Ship and Suite Tour. Thank you again for watching, and as always, safe and happy travels from T's Cruise and Travel Muse.